Bill 208. It is creating the Fairness in Women's Sports Act to require that female student athletic teams only include members who are biologically female. Committee, in the past, we have worked to make sure that we had ample time to work in and out with proponents, opponents, and neutral testimony. Today we have 10 proponents that are giving testimony in person as well as virtually. We have 11 opponents that are presenting in person and virtually, and we have a virtual neutral presentation. Now, due to time and due to the participation, what we are going to do is, committee members, you were notified yesterday. So we will start as we normally do with bill, and our reviser will give an explanation of the bill. If there are questions specific to the bill, as we always do, we will ask those questions of the reviser. We are going to allow proponents to speak. Then we will have opponent testimony. Then we will have neutral, just like we always do. With the exception, we do not have the time, the availability of time to question each opponent or each proponent or the neutral. So what we have arranged to do is you can jot down your question for a particular individual, or you can jot down a question that you have just in general. I need you to email those to our committee assistant, Cindy, by 5 p.m. today. Then Cindy will email those to all of those that participated, either virtually or in person. She will email those questions. So if you have a specific question for an individual, you have their name. You also have their written testimony online. So go ahead and send those questions. Cindy will send them out when she has received them from us. If you don't have any questions to ask, just let Cindy know that she's not waiting. So the cutoff is going to be 5 p.m. Then we will get that to all of the individuals that participate, and you have until 4 p.m. tomorrow to send your response. So send that to Cindy, who is going to be sending those questions to you. Just hit respond. She will send those to all of us, and then those responses will be a part of the official record. You know, that's one of the things that we do lose in hearings when we just ask orally questions. That doesn't become a part of the actual record. And so this gives us an opportunity for everything that's said today and all of the response to the questions that you receive tomorrow. That allows us to get all of that testimony into the formal record. So I do want to thank everyone for participating, those of you that are here with us virtually and those that you are here with us physically. So we will start up with the reviser to give us an explainer on Senate Bill 208. Senator Sykes, did you have a question?
I do. Just, I appreciate this, and I sent an email to the committee, and I was very disappointed that we were not able to extend this. And I wish, on the session today on the Senate floor, that we have a light schedule. I wish we could have extended our committee after working on the floor, but I'm concerned that some of the dialogue as we're asking questions and then responses, that we are not allowing that to happen in the committee process. And I just felt like I needed to have that on the record. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for saying that. Just so that everyone knows, everyone on the committee was notified yesterday about these guidelines. When we had the onpouring, we are unable to change the schedule. We are expected to be on the floor. Senate leaders are expected to be in a meeting after we're on the floor, so we are just unable to change the schedule. But now we will go back to the reviser. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jason Long with the reviser's office. Senate Bill 208 does create the Fairness in Women's Sports Act. The basic premise of the bill is in Section 3, which would require that any teams or sports sponsored by a public elementary or secondary school or a public college or university designate such teams or sports as being in one of 3 categories, either a team or sport for males, men, or boys, females, women, or girls, or a co-ed or mixed team or sport. And that designation requirement would also apply to the students or teams from any other elementary, secondary school, college, or university that is competing against the public school or college. And then that section further requires that any team or sport that is designated for females, women, or girls cannot be open to students of the male sex. There are provisions if there is a dispute regarding a particular student's sex, it is to be resolved through a signed form, could be a health examination form by the student's personal health care provider that verifies the student's biological sex. Section 4 of the bill prohibits any governmental entity or any licensing, accrediting, or athletic organization from taking any adverse action against a school or college for complying with Section 3 of the bill. And then Section 5 provides 3 different causes of action for damages arising from a violation of Section 3. First, a student who is deprived of an athletic opportunity or who suffers harm as a result of a violation of Section 3 can bring a lawsuit. Any student who is subjected to retaliation or other adverse action as a result of reporting a violation of Section 3 can bring a lawsuit. And finally, any school or college that suffers any harm as a result of a violation of Section 3 is also entitled to bring a lawsuit in court. Those lawsuits must be brought within 2 years after the harm has occurred, and any plaintiff can seek both monetary damages and attorney fees and court costs. The bill will go into effect on July 1st of this year if enacted, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Revisor Long. Committee, what questions do you have for our revisor? Senator Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jason,
I need you to move your mic so that he can hear you.
Jason, I'm sorry. I'm just a little confused as I was reading the bill in Section 2, I'm sorry. And I thought I was reading a journal article with these quotes from different, from Psychology Today and a quote from a specific person. And you've been doing this as long as you've been doing revisor work for a long time. So is this normal practice to have this kind of language in a bill?
Section 2, Senator, contains legislative findings supporting the purpose and intent of the act. And while it is probably not usual practice to include quotes from various sources cited like they are in Senate Bill 208, it is certainly the legislature's prerogative to make whatever statements in their findings and include whatever citations and sources the legislature deems necessary to support those findings.
Are there other questions, committee? Seeing none, we will move into our hearing. First up, our proponent is Senator Renee Erickson, District 30, Kansas Senate. Just so that everyone knows, everybody gets 2 minutes. At 30, when you have 30 seconds left, I will raise my hand. That's your warning. When my hand comes down, your time is up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I was the first person to graduate from college because of an athletic scholarship. But basketball gave me so much more, as it does all athletes. It taught me teamwork, self-discipline, gave me leadership opportunities, and it also probably kept me out of just a little bit, more than just a little bit of trouble at some points. These opportunities are being threatened, which is why 20 states have introduced similar protections for girls. Senate Bill 208's sole purpose is to protect the opportunities that I had by ensuring that only biological females compete in girls' sports, because every female athlete deserves a fair playing field. There are indisputable, scientifically proven hormonal, chromosomal, and physiological advantages that males have over females, which create an unequal playing field. If science and common sense aren't enough, please consider the following. At the last Kansas High School State Track Meet in 2019, 50 boys clocked a time faster. 50 boys in 2019 clocked a time faster than the all-time record for girls in the 3,200 meter. KSHA sets different qualifying standards for the state swim meet for boys and girls for a very good reason. This year alone, each of the top 50 boys beat the longest standing record in girls swimming, set in 1998. Every Saturday for the past few months, I get to watch my 5-year-old granddaughter, Paisley, play basketball at the Y. I'm not biased, but she's got game. And it's hard to imagine that 35 years after I walked off the court, she may not have those same opportunities. Committee, please follow the science, follow common sense, support fairness for women, support Senate Bill 208. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have virtually with us Idaho Representative Barbara Ehart. Barbara, are you there with us?
Madam Chairman, I am here, if you can hear me.
We can hear you, and thank you for joining us. I'm sorry, long distance, but you only have 2 minutes.
You know what? I will take 2 minutes, Madam Chairman, committee, and good people of Kansas. Thank you for letting me come and testify. Yes, I am the representative from Idaho that first brought this legislation forward. I am the sponsor and first of its kind. I appreciate the fact that you are taking this up. You know, this, and listening to the testimony that just occurred, those who are my age and older understand that we did not have opportunities. I was an 8-year-old kid in 1972 when Title IX passed. Little did I know how much it would change and impact my life, because at that point, people would ask me what it is that I wanted to do and be when I grew up. And really, we didn't have the same opportunities that our counterparts had. And I would tell people that I wanted to play sports. And I literally was told, girls don't do that. Fast forward to where I had the opportunity to play not just in high school, but to play collegiately on a scholarship at Idaho State. And then I had a 15-year coaching career, coaching Division I women's basketball for 15 years at 4 fantastic institutions. Now, let me just say, you know, when we look at where we are today, having been at the collegiate level, I know firsthand what it means for coaches to see what each other is doing and to copy, to repeat and repeat. In other words, when you end up with something that works, you go and do that. And so Idaho faced a situation this past year where a runner from the University of Montana, who had run as John Eastwood for 3 years, decided John's senior year that he was going to run as June. And he ran in Idaho, and he ran against our young women, and he annihilated our young women. If John had done this his freshman year, I guarantee you it would have forced every other Big Sky school to go out and recruit somebody to be able to compete against June Eastwood. Because in athletics, it's first about winning. It's first about competition. All the other benefits come secondary. And I would hope that you as a committee and the good people of Kansas would do everything they can to continue to protect those opportunities that people before me were able to set a path forward. And people like me have fought really hard to continue to help young women follow. Thank you very much for your time, committee, and thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you so much for joining us. Next up, we have Brittany Jones, Director, Advocacy for Family Policy Alliance of Kansas.
Committee, thank you for having me today. My name is Brittany Jones, and I am an attorney and director of advocacy for Family Policy Alliance of Kansas. Title IX was written and implemented to correct disadvantages for women in education and athletics. National activists are accelerating their attacks on women's place in these institutions. As a response, a coalition is formed, including many who you will hear from today, that are standing up to save girls' sports. 20 states have already introduced similar legislation to the Fairness in Women's Sports Act just this year. The concerns presented by this bill are not idle threats, because KSHA has already created policies that threaten the integrity of girls' sports. Parents and athletes across our state are not okay with allowing girls' sports to be erased. Today, you will hear from many compelling athletes and their supporters, sharing their stories of how important women's sports has been to them and to their futures. I ask that you protect fair play for these athletes and for girls in the future. Give them a reason to shoot for the stars, to work, to dream, and to compete by voting in favor of SB 208. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, I have Barbara Saldivar, State Director of Concerned Women for America of Kansas. Barbara, are you here? Okay.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Barbara Saldivar, and I'm the State Director of Concerned Women for America of Kansas, speaking for Concerned Women for America, it's Legislative Action Committee. I'm here today on behalf of Kansas members in support of SB 208. Female athletics are a pathway to development, opportunity, and success for girls and women in America. So when male-born athletes are permitted in women's sports, as trans women, female-born athletes will lose hard-fought opportunities which came about through the feminist movement in the implementation of Title IX. 50 years ago, we can recall how women had to fight for their right to compete, like in the Boston Marathon, when number 261 got her bib torn off and was pushed for daring to join that arena, because it was an arena for men. That's kind of the way everything went in those days. I lived through that. Men generally have greater density and strength in bones, tendons, and ligaments, larger hearts, greater lung capacity, and higher red blood content. So these are the two reasons that I urge you to support the victories of the women's movement, which open the doors for women to compete in a level playing field, acknowledge biological science, and preserve women's sports. Please vote yes on SB 208. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, I'm going to call on Jessica Steffen, Yale University, NCAA Division I Women's Basketball. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. My name is Jessica Steffen. I was born and raised in Beeler, Kansas. I am now a 1L and Rice Scholar at the University of Kansas School of Law, and last May I graduated from Yale University, where I played NCAA Division I basketball at Yale. At Yale, I was in a class of under 1,400 students. I was the only student from Kansas. Yale students often talk about that one thing that got them into Yale. For me, it was the ability to shoot a basketball from anywhere on the court. That ability was honed playing countless pickup basketball games at the local YMCA, where there was not another girl on the court. The boys were bigger, stronger, and faster than I was, so my game adapted to the fact that I could not compete with them physically. What I could do was shoot over the top of them. I worked incredibly hard to develop my basketball skills. When I competed against other girls in middle school and high school, I dominated. But no matter how sophisticated my skills became, I could never overcome the superior size, strength, and speed of the male athletes at the YMCA. I realized as a freshman in high school that I was never going to turn basketball into a career. But what I could do was turn it into the world's best education. And that's what I did. I was able to do so because of generations of women who came before me, who fought tirelessly for Title IX. Title IX gives women athletes the right to equal opportunity in sports and educational institutions that receive federal funds. I was the benefactor of their hard work. I took advantage of it. But I know Yale, and I know the coastal mentality. If we don't make a conscious decision here in Kansas to preserve those opportunities for young women, they will be taken away. I'm here today out of respect for the women who came before me and gave me the opportunity to pursue an Ivy League education through high school sports. And I'm here for the girls younger than me to help ensure that they have the same opportunities that I did. And that is the absolute least that I can do, and certainly a duty that I owe. Today, I stand in support of Senate Bill 208. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call on Callie Hicks, former University of Kansas track athlete. Callie, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. My name is Callie Hicks, and I live in Greeley, Kansas. I speak in support of Bill number 208 as a Kansas woman with demonstrated experience in high school and Division I college athletics. I'm very thankful for this opportunity. As an athlete for Lawrence Free State High School, I was part of a state championship winning gymnastics team in 2014 and earned back-to-back pole vault 6A state championships in 2015 and 2016. As a senior, I was recognized as Free State Scholar Athlete of the Year and was awarded the Merlin Gish Scholarship at the Shawnee Mission North Relays in the eye of my parents and many other talented athletes. These accomplishments propelled me to succeed further at the Division I level for the University of Kansas, later competing in 2 Big 12 Conference championships in 2018 and 2019. As a college athlete, I was able to live out my dream of working with one of the most talented pole vault coaches in the nation while receiving a stellar education from KU School of Business. My dedication to athletics required willpower, a keen sense of time management, and the ability to communicate with teachers, coaches, and trainers. But ultimately, one of the greatest gifts from my achievement in sports was the opportunity to coach aspiring young women in the track and gymnastics clinics. Seeing their motivation and drive reminds me that the pursuit of excellence in sport carries over to all aspects of a woman's life. I'm here today because I want fairness in sport for my colleagues and teammates who continue to compete collegiately, but also for these young girls just beginning their athletic journeys and developing their competitive spirits. I want to protect their future endeavors as high school state champions and their dreams of Division I competition. It is at the core of my being that I believe and know to be true. Biological men have an unfair advantage competing against biological women in women's sports. To say otherwise denies overwhelming data and sports statistics as well as science. Just in the pole vault event alone, the average height cleared by the top Division I men's pole vaulters exceeds the average height cleared by the same top 5 women by more than 4 feet. The average height for women is 14 feet 7 inches, and the men's is 18 feet 10 inches. Letting biological males compete as women in women's sports is the demise of a level playing field for women who deserve just as fair a chance to compete for first place as men do. I believe it's my duty and purpose to stand and defend what women's and girls' sports were created to be and should be, competition for biological women and girls. I hope that the state of Kansas will protect fairness of competition by passing Bill 208 and continue to provide women and girls the same opportunities it provided me in high school and college. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Callie. Now I'm going to call on virtually, we have Natasha Chart, Executive Director, Women's Liberation Front. Natasha, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Keep talking and then we'll see you.
Hi there. I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Liberation Front, also known as WOLF. We represent radical feminists across the country and our members in Kansas, and we're asking the committee members to please vote yes to support SB 208. Women and girls have benefited tremendously since the advent of Title IX, from being encouraged in an active lifestyle, from being encouraged to academic and later college success, from having lower teen pregnancy rates, something which I think pretty much everyone agrees is a good thing, and that male athletes, however they identify themselves, is not a risk that they face as they're going through adolescence. It improves college attendance and later career success, and has lifted a lot of young women out of poverty, out of histories of overcoming abuse and other hardship. But these advantages, they begin before puberty. The physical advantages in competitive sports, we could go into a lot of statistics and medical research, but the fact is that every year high school boys beat the grown women's Olympic athletic records. A team of under 15 boys beat the US women's national soccer team in 2017. The reverse is almost unimaginable. You wouldn't see a team of teenage girl athletes beating a team of grown men in competitive sports. That's how big the differences are, and everybody understands that. Before Title IX, a friend of mine told me about how the girls at her school only had a little patch of asphalt that they were allowed to play jacks on, that the bigger playing field was only for the boys, only for boys' sports. And after Title IX, when they basically let the girls out to run and to play, They were so happy. They were so joyous that it was considered an okay thing for girls to do now. And that spirit, that heart, that confidence that access to sports and physical activity gives to girls and stays with them throughout their life is so important, and it must be preserved. Please vote yes on SB 208. Please protect women's and girls' sports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Carolyn Bruce McAndrews, 2004 U.S. Olympic Swim Team. Carolyn, are you with us?
I am. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Keep talking and hopefully, there we go. Now we can
Great.
see you.
There we go. My name is Caroline Bruce McAndrew, and I am born and raised Kansan, as well as a member of our U.S. 2004 Olympic swim team. I grew up swimming. I come from a family that I have two other sisters who also swam, as well as a brother who also swam, and we were all given the opportunity to be able to swim collegiately, and 3 out of 4 of us were able to try out for our U.S. Olympic swim team. Being raised in a family with other girl sisters as well as a boy, it was always pretty competitive between my sisters and I, but we were never able to compete with my brother. We all swam at what people would consider the highest level in our country, if not the world, and it still wasn't even close with my brother. Swimming provided countless opportunities for me. My parents, neither of them swam. And so when we got into the sport, I don't think my parents even imagined what would be provided to us or open doors for me and my sisters through this amazing sport. I attended Stanford University, where I was on the swim team for 5 years, as well as got my master's degree in media studies. My younger sister also attended Stanford and swam on the Stanford swim team, and my other sister attended University of North Carolina. We were provided these opportunities to go to these amazing academic schools because of what swimming had provided for us. We spent countless hours in the pool training for this, and I can tell you as an Olympian myself, the hard work that goes into becoming an Olympian, especially in the United States, is very hard. I cannot imagine trying to compete against people who had different advantages than I had and I was born with. Swimming has also provided me with many opportunities post-career, as I have been a mentor and a coach to so many young female athletes. And I am now a mother of 2 girls myself, and I can't wait for the day that they get into sports, and am excited to be able to stand by them and support them. And I hope that there's not many things that are going to prohibit them from being able to participate in sports like I did as a female. And I'm in support of the Women's Fairness in Sports Act.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Next up, I have Beth Stelzer, founder, Save Women's Sports. Beth, are you with us today?
Hi.
Okay, she's there. Beth, now we can hear you. Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair Committee. My name is Beth Stelzer. I'm a wife, mom, and amateur powerlifter. I'm the founder of the grassroots nonpartisan coalition, Save Women's Sports. I'm here to ask you to vote yes on SB 208. Fairness, privacy, and safety for females must be ensured and protected. Like most women, I would have never bothered to even start my fitness journey if I had to compete against males. There would be no point. Male participation in female sports is a growing problem across the world. We should not sit back and wait until a female is seriously injured to do something. Allowing males to compete in female sports denies women and girls fair play and bodily privacy. It undermines the very purpose of Title IX. It is unethical, unfair, and unscientific. If we continue to allow males to compete in female sports, there will be male sports, there will be co-ed sports, but female sports will cease to exist. This bill is simply to protect females. Please support 208 and set the precedent to save female sports. Thank you.
Caroline, thank you very much. Last up, I have Matt Sharp, Senior Counsel, Alliance Defending Freedom. Matt, are you with us?
Yeah, good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Matt Sharp, Senior Counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom, the nation's largest nonprofit legal organization that advocates for religious liberty, free speech, life, and marriage in the family. Women deserve to compete on a level playing field, but allowing males to compete in women's sports destroys fair competition and women's athletic opportunities. Our firm is proud to represent female athletes like Selena Soul in Connecticut and Madison Kenyon in Idaho in lawsuits seeking to preserve fairness in women's sports. SB 208 is consistent with both the U.S. Constitution and federal law, including Title IX. Federal courts have long recognized that it's constitutional to provide separate programs based on biological sex. That includes sports teams, locker rooms, and even single-sex schools. As one federal appellate court explained, due to the biological differences between males and females, an athletic policy that precludes boys from playing on girls' teams does not run afoul of the Equal Protection Clause. Another federal appellate court put it this way: it takes little imagination to realize that were play and competition not separated by sex, the bulk of females would quickly be eliminated from participation and denied any meaningful opportunity for athletic involvement. Indeed, both the U.S. Department of Justice and Department of Education and attorneys general from 14 states, including Kansas Attorney General Schmidt, filed briefs supporting the constitutionality of Idaho's recent women's sports legislation that Representative Barbara Ehart was the sponsor of. At the end of this all, in sports, biology is what matters. And when we ignore science and biological reality, then women pay the price. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us, Matt. Committee, I want to make reference to, we do have 8 other proponent testimony. They are written only. We are going to move on to our opponent testimony in person. We have Representative Stephanie Byers, District 86, Kansas House of Representatives. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. My name is Stephanie Byers, and I am a descendant of the Chickasaw Nation. My Native American ancestors survived bounties that were placed upon them. Our ways of marriage were forbidden, our cultural and medicinal practices forbidden, all in an attempt to systematically erase us as Native Americans, all because we were different than what was then mainstream America. And here we are, a century later. In Kansas, since 2016, there have been 4 bills introduced that would put bounties on the heads of trans school children, other bills that would have mocked our marriages, and recently, a bill introduced that would make it a felony to provide life-saving medication to trans youth. Right now, this bill would ban trans girls from affirming their identity through sports, thereby erasing them. Trans kids thrive when their identity is affirmed, but it's not always an easy path. The emotional exhaustion of keeping who you are hidden in a world that often goes out of its way to demonstrate you are not welcome takes its toll. Affirmation helps relieve the anxiety and depression that far too often leads to suicide. I'm a retired teacher. Matter of fact, in addition to going to Oklahoma Christian College together in the 80s, the sponsor of this bill and I taught together at Wichita High School North. When my trans students would hear their names called and their pronouns used, they would beam. It's a tremendous feeling to not be invisible, but rather be seen for who you truly are. Preventing students from playing sports as their authentic self gives one more proof that in spite of who you know yourself to be, you are just unwanted. On November 20th of each year, the trans community pauses for the Transgender Day of Remembrance. In these ceremonies, there is a reading of the names of transgender people who have died from violence during the year. There are USD 259 students who have died from suicide on this list. I oppose this bill. We don't need to read the names of any more dead children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, I have Allie Fennell, Girls Travel Hockey Team, High School's Golf Team. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. My name is Allie Fennell, and I'm a 15-year-old Topeka native. I currently play freshman girls high school golf, as well as women's travel hockey out of Kansas City. Besides sports, I'm active in Model United Nations, debate, as well as the International Baccalaureate program my high school offers. In the past, I've played every sport, from ballet to basketball, truly anything I could convince my parents to let me play. Growing up in a community where sports were incredibly prevalent, the competitive arena became my home. I believe that everyone should have the opportunity to compete in a place where they can be their authentic selves. People participate in sports to have fun. Excluding transgender girls will not benefit anyone. Athletics improve mental health, academics, physical health, and social skills. Everyone deserves a place where they can feel welcome and encouraged. We need our lawmakers to set a good example for impressionable young adults. Showing our athletes that exclusion is okay will impact more than just our locker rooms. According to GLSEN, 50.9% of LGBT students have been bullied in PE class because of their gender expression. Imagine these figures if we were to pass a bill saying that discrimination and exclusion against our teammates was okay. Is bullying the legacy that you would like to leave? I am the high school athlete that you claim to be protecting, and I am here today to tell you that I do not need your protection. Transgender women are not threats. They are friends, they are sisters, and they are teammates. Vote against SB 208 and give everyone the right to play. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Ryan Brooks, News and Online Editor, Emporia Gazette. Ryan, thanks for being here today.
Thank you. I come to you today not as my role as a journalist for Emporia, but as the mother of a transgender child. 6 months ago, if you had asked me about my children, I would have told you that I had 2 boys, but it turns out I was wrong. My 12-year-old came out as trans on her 12th birthday, and I practiced all the way in the car.
It's okay.
Telling myself I wouldn't cry.
We just want to hear your story. We're glad you're here.
My daughter, for 2 years, battled anxiety and depression. I would sit with her, not knowing why she was so sad, why she was battling suicidal ideation, and not understanding why I couldn't help her. When she finally told me, "Mom, I'm a girl," everything made sense. We finally were able to work through it in therapy, which she had been in for years, and the smile that I hadn't seen in years has come back. This bill is telling children like my daughter that she is less than other children. You're telling children like my daughter that she doesn't belong in activities. And you are telling children like my daughter that it's okay for them to not be with the other children. I sat with my daughter many nights while she cried and said I should just kill myself because maybe then I'll wake up and be a girl. I ask you to please vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Tom Witt with us. He is the Executive Director of Equality Kansas. Welcome back to the Education Committee, Tom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most of you know me. I've appeared in this committee in the House Analog repeatedly over the past 16 years to talk about bullying. And I'm going to talk about bullying again today, because what else am I going to do in an education committee in this building? The bullying I'm going to talk about today is legislative bullying. Since Obergefell was decided in 2015, that's the Supreme Court case that recognized same-sex marriage, there have been 10 measures introduced in this building attacking transgender children, 10 of them, including a resolution in the Senate on sine die in 2016. They couldn't wait to attack trans kids over the Obama administration's interpretation of Title IX. These bills, these bounty bills, you know, that would tell little kids there's a $2,500 reward on your head if you get caught in the bathroom. These bills that say you can't get medical care. These bills that say you're less than. This isn't about who can shoot the highest basket. This isn't about who can serve the best volleyball. This isn't about who wins the 100-yard dash. This is a legislature showing years of animus towards LGBTQ people. And again, for the past 6 years, the target has been children. This really needs to stop. I'm so disappointed that this bill is advancing. We've managed to keep pretty much all of these horrible bills from getting hearings. People are going to see this on the 6 o'clock news tomorrow or tonight, and tomorrow little kids are going to get harassed in school. That's where this goes. Please read my colleague's testimony, Liz Hamer from Equality, Kansas. She talks about a young boy who committed suicide in November, who went to Derby High School, where he was harassed by administrators and even by a former representative for that district. This has to end. And I know I've gone over time. My apologies, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your indulgence.
Thank you. Next up, I have Kendall Hawkins, Policy Coordinator, GLSEN, Kansas.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I've lived in Kansas my entire life, and I've been proud to call it my home for nearly 33 years. My name is Kendall Hawkins. I volunteer as the Policy Coordinator for GLSEN, Kansas. I'm also a parent of a second grader, a special education teacher, head coach of a middle school cross-country team, and a veteran of the Kansas Army National Guard. Transgender students in my classroom and in classrooms across our state are scared. They already face extreme hostilities within our communities and schools. Bullying, harassment, and assault are all too common. Proposals like the one before us today intensify these hostilities and magnify their negative effects on transgender students. To give you some insight into how serious this issue is for transgender students, consider the most recent GLSEN School Climate Survey. 18% of Kansas LGBTQ students reported regularly hearing school staff make homophobic remarks, and 37% heard school staff make remarks about someone's gender expression. 3 legislators who are former educators are sponsors of these anti-transgender bills that would directly harm Kansas transgender youth. Some educators have a hard time believing that the previous statistic because they don't want to believe their peers could unintentionally harm children, much less explicitly. As these former educators try to set these policies for the entire state, let them be proof of the school climates the students endure as well. Within the last 2 years, we know of at least 3 transgender students in the Wichita area that have lost their lives as a result of the hostile climate perpetuated by legislation such as this. Of these 3 lives lost, 2 attended schools in Senate President Ty Masterson's district. As a trans woman, I understand and share many of the struggles transgender kids endure. When one of them is lost to violence or suicide, I don't just feel their loss, I experience it. I'm tired of standing at the candlelight vigils. I'm tired of burying trans kids. Why aren't you? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, I have Jefffreund.
It's the first time I've ever been in this building, and I'm 45 years old and from Kansas, so.
We're glad you're here.
I know, I'm excited. My name is Jefffreund, and I'm currently the principal at Robinson Middle School in Wichita, Kansas, and I took the day off to be here. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son, and I'm a nationally board certified teacher. I've been a school principal for over a decade, and I'm a lifelong Kansan. I'm from Conway Springs, Kansas, which can't get any more small rural Kansas than that. I'm an educator of over 2 decades, during which time I got to work with both Representative Erickson and Representative Byers. And I can tell you that in the time I've been a leader, I've gotten a chance to see our schools change. I've gotten to see our country change, and I've gotten to see my classrooms and the climate in my buildings change. I've seen kids grow more tolerant, even as adults have grown less so. I've seen our kids accept each other because that's what kids do. They accept on the playgrounds, on play dates, and on the fields. I've been a leader of over 3 schools, and I can tell you that when we lead with empathy, when we lead with compassion, when we lead with understanding and acceptance, kids get better. Educating gets easier. Their lives get easier. My job, well, it shouldn't be easier, gets easier. Their success, their tolerance, and their empathy grows. As Kansas principal of over 10 years, I could say that this bill is not just going to hurt some kids. It is going to hurt all of my kids. Despite its best intentions, which I believe are true, it's going to hurt our kids who are learning and looking to us for how to act, looking for us to learn how to be accepting. As a parent in the stands, at the Y, at the parent in the stands of a middle school and high school athletic events, as the father of 3 sons and one amazingly dedicated, but not amazing athlete yet, daughter who in high school competes against girls who are bigger and better than she is, but she works very hard. I'm asking you to please vote against this bill because it will hurt all of our kids. The bullying I will deal with will increase. The hurt will increase. So please, as the state that made separate but equal the norm, continue that today and vote against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Virtually, we have Mark Dissetti, Legislative and Political Advocacy, the KNEA. Mr. Dissetti, are you there?
I am, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Hey, very good. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. First, I'm trying to be quick here. We believe this is a KSHA issue fundamentally, so we would suggest that should be considered. But secondly, my organization opposes discrimination in all areas of life on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender, creed, sexual orientation, or gender identity. This creates discrimination, which is detrimental to society, creates unfair and unjust divisions, and leads to bullying, anger, depression, anxiety, and ultimately suicide in many cases. This bill, we believe, legitimizes the marginalization of some of our kids and puts them at risk. Frankly, the fundamental thing is that times change. Times are changing. It seems fundamental truth. Most of us struggle against changes because it's far more comfortable to not have to consider the changes. But attitudes change, and it is incumbent on those of us who still wish the world when I was in high school in 1970 to find a way to accept and adapt to societal changes, even those with which we may personally be uncomfortable. Schools were once segregated. They're not now, and we would never allow them to go back to that. Interracial and same-sex marriage were once illegal. Today, they are celebrated. Homosexuals were once institutionalized and even imprisoned. Today, rainbow flags proliferate. Girls are competing on high school and middle school wrestling teams against boys and winning matches. Now girls are breaking into college football, starting with Liz Heaston, then through Katie Nita, April Goss, Sarah Fuller finally becoming the first woman to score points in a Power 5 NCAA Division I football game. Women are proving every day they can compete with men. Why do we continue to think of them as the weaker sex? They're tough. I also would remind you that there was a Caitlyn Jenner came out of trans, and immediately there was a cry to strip her of her Olympic medals because she had competed against men, and that was unfair. This is the reverse. We'd ask you to vote no on this bill. It's unnecessary. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Kyle Velte, Associate Professor, University of Kansas School of Law. Kyle, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Velte. My pronouns are she and her. I am an associate professor at the University of Kansas School of Law. I'm here in my personal capacity as a legal expert in LGBTQ anti-discrimination law to testify in opposition to SB 208. It is unlawful under both Title IX and the Equal Protection Clause. As you know, Title IX prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in educational programs that receive federal funds. The Supreme Court has held that gender identity discrimination is sex discrimination. Therefore, the law is clear that Title IX prohibits discrimination against transgender students, rendering SB 208 in violation of Title IX if it should pass. Under the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution, it is also unlawful. Because SB 208 classifies based on sex, when it classifies based on gender identity, it fails under the Equal Protection Clause unless it is substantially related to an important government interest. The justification given by the government here has got to be exceedingly persuasive under the case law. The justification has to be genuine. It can't be hypothetical harm. Here, the government interest that's being put forth is loosely sex equality or fairness to cisgender girls. Even if we assume that that is an important government interest, that's not the end of the analysis. SB 208 would still fail because it is not substantially related to that proffered interest. It's not substantially related to fairness to cisgender girls. The only justification we have so far for this is a hypothetical future problem that hasn't arisen. The law is both over-inclusive and under-inclusive, so the fit is not right under the Constitution. It's based on an erroneous assumption about transgender girls that they have an advantage over cisgender girls. This is erroneous, so there's no factual ground to support the fairness argument. That leaves only one reason for this law: animus or dislike of transgendered people. That is not a ground that will justify this law under the Equal Protection Clause. In conclusion, SB 208 does not further sex equality or fairness in sport for cisgender girls. What it does do is inflict rank discrimination against transgender girls in violation of both Title IX and the United States Constitution. I urge you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Next up, I have Asher Wickel, clinically licensed marriage and family therapist. Asher, are you with us today?
I am. Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
We can. Keep talking
much.
and then we'll see you.
Perfect. My name is Asher Wickel. I am a clinically licensed marriage and family therapist in private practice in Wichita, and I care to transgender patients ranging from early childhood through adulthood. I truly appreciate the attention dedicated to the important considerations raised by SB 208. I share with its proponents a serious interest in its stated goals. We know that access to athletics plays a major role in student learning, school participation, physical and emotional well-being, and social connection. The ability of all of Kansas children and young adults to engage in sports in ways that are safe and fair and that meets the needs of students of any gender is a serious concern. In many ways, though, SB 208 poses a threat to exactly these outcomes. It endangers the safety and privacy of Kansas students, not only transgender students. It makes athletic participation more costly, higher risk, and less accessible. And ultimately, I believe it makes the bill undermines its own stated goals. SB 208 concerns itself at some length with sex-linked bodily development and hormone levels. But of course, these aren't consistent across all students. So we run the risk with not only transgender students, that a girl who grows taller, faster than her peers, or perhaps is a late bloomer, isn't obviously in the thick of puberty when other students are, but is a skilled athlete, will have her gender disputed under this bill and be forced to prove it to her school in exactly the same invasive terms that it proposes. The tests proposed for assessing sex, other than direct genital inspection, are expensive, not medically necessary, inaccessible to many families. Genetic testing, hormone assay out of pocket cost hundreds or thousands of dollars. And we know that cost is already one of the most important barriers to participation in girls' and women's sports. It's not a question where we're forced to rely on conjecture or educated guesswork. We have answers, we have real-world outcomes. In states where trans students are allowed to participate in less restricted ways, the participation of girls and women in sports increases, as it has in California and in Connecticut. In states with laws requiring students to compete in school athletics in accordance with biological sex, however defined, drops. Moreover, since the International Olympic and trans participation within athletes' genders of identity in 2004, there have been no transgender medalists. Even at an elite level, the inclusion of transgender athletes does not cause harm to cisgender women. The stated goals of SB 208 have great value, but as implemented as written here, it would harm students regardless of gender.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you. Last up, as far as opponent testimony, I have Davis Hammett. Davis, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead and start talking and we'll be good.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Bob Gardner, members of the committee. I didn't really plan to speak on this, but the last couple of nights I've just been laying in bed kind of enraged by the fact that this bill even has a hearing. I think the bill itself is shameful. I think it's incredibly unfortunate that you're holding a hearing on this, and I hope that this bill stops now. I'm a bisexual person who in 4th grade, I began attempting suicide. I attempted suicide at that young age because of the feeling that I could never live a normal life as I confronted my sexuality. And so while I didn't want to die, I also didn't want to confront basically a world that hated me and couldn't accept me. I have worked a lot in LGBTQ rights, and I have sat with trans boys and girls who also struggle with this. I have sat with parents of transgender girls as their kids receive death threats, mostly from adults in the mail. I have helped parents get security systems for their home because they're so scared for their transgender daughters. There are real threats to the safety of these kids by y'all moving forward on these bills. As was mentioned, this will be on the news. Kids will hear that their government doesn't just not support them, their government is actively working to exclude them. And on that, I would consider moving forward on this a disgusting abuse of your power against vulnerable children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Committee, I will direct your attention to the written-only testimony that has been presented. We are going to move on now to neutral testimony, and I have Mark Tallman, Associate Executive Director of Kansas Association of School Boards, who's with us virtually. Mark, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hope you can hear me. We appear as
Yeah.
neutral. We appear as neutral because our members have not specifically taken a position on this issue, but our staff has reviewed the bill, and there are several items we think the committee needs to consider. Most of them have already been addressed. You have my written testimony, and I know you'll allow committee members to send questions, so I'll be happy to wait for those and yield my time right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us. We do have written neutral testimony from Dina Horst and Ben Jones, our legislative liaisons with our Kansas State Board of Education. Committee, we have heard from everyone that signed up to give testimony virtually and in person. And to those that participated today, I say thank you. Committee members, please get your questions. If they are specific to someone that provided testimony, then go ahead and be very specific and say, you know, Susie Jones, here's my question, and type that out. If it's general for all of the participants, go ahead and get that sent in as well. Make sure you send it to our committee assistant, to Cindy, and get it in by 5 p.m. For those of you that have testified, you will be receiving, so check your email, you'll be receiving those questions and respond to those that are directed specifically to you or in general, any of the ones that you want to respond to. Send them back to Cindy. She will then get them all back to us, and they will be a part of the testimony that we will include for this hearing. I thank everyone for participating, and our committee meeting is adjourned.